Hey folks, Crimson Blaze here. Welcome to another hammock camping video. This week I am backpacking the Timberline Trail, and right now I'm at my campsite at Ramona Falls, and it is stunning. Probably one of my best campsites, at least top 10, if not top 5 that I've ever had. Just a wonderful, wonderful campsite. But today's video is about my tarp. If you've watched any of my other backpacking videos, you've seen that normally I carry a 12-foot Dyneema tarp with doors, and I love that tarp. It's worked out amazing for me. But I've had it a long time, and it was beginning to show some of its wear. And in my Black Hills backpacking trip this year, it got destroyed by the wind. I was hiking that day. When I got back to camp, the ends were just all shredded, and that wind was ripping. It was ripping pretty good. So I needed to get a new tarp. Well, this is the Warbonnet Thunderfly, and I thought today I would talk about some of the specs of this tarp and just how well it's working out. So for this tarp, I've used the same hardware that I did for hanging my Dyneema tarp, and that is the Dutch Stinger. And I really love these. This just makes hanging a tarp super, super easy. And I have it on some zinget rope, and it's just tied here to this little ring at the end of my tarp, and it makes it really easy to tighten up my tarp. You'll also see that I have the same snake skin, so that has worked out really well. And what I've tried to do is use all of the same hardware that I did for my Dyneema tarp, because it's great. I like that setup. And there was only a couple things that I've had to adjust, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Now just let me deploy the tarp, and then we can talk about some of the stats on it. I highly recommend getting a snake skin for your tarp. That just makes it, deploying it, and then putting it back when you're trying to pack it, so much easier. So that is the tarp fully deployed. And my first impression of this tarp is it's huge. This tarp is huge. So it is 13 feet in length, and it is 103 inches, I think about 8.5 feet wide. And so it's definitely much bigger than my 12-foot Dyneema tarp. This tarp comes in 13 feet or 11 feet. And I didn't want an 11 feet tarp. I've already got one of those. I wanted something specific for a bridge hammock. And that's why I went with the Warbonnet Thunderfly, because they make tarps for their Ridge Runner bridge hammock. There's a mini fly, which is much smaller. I don't think it's as wide. And then there is a mountain fly. I believe it's a mountain fly, and its side seems to almost come to the ground. And so I just went in the middle. But I think the mini fly may have sufficed. But I wanted a larger tarp because of the coverage of my bridge hammock and being able to close my doors. Because even though the hammock itself is not really long, it has all this, this extra cordage here that, that hangs from your hammock. And I wanted my doors to be able to come past that. So if it was an 11-foot tarp, even my 12-foot tarp did not really come past all of this cordage here. So that's the reason I got the 13 feet instead of the 11 foot. Another piece of hardware that I'm still using are my Dutch fleas, and these are great. So my setup is almost exactly the same, where I have stretch cord on the corner of my tarp, and then I have a Dutch flea that's attached to the end of that stretch cord. And then this cordage goes down to my stake, because I wrap my cordage around my stake. you know, for several reasons. But some continue to use that setup. These fleas are amazing. Again, they weigh nothing, and they help prevent, you know, or help those of us who don't know how to tie knots. Another option that you'll need to consider when buying one of these tarps is the type of fabric. And so for the 13-foot tarp, the two options I had were 30D sil poly or 30D sil nylon. And I went with the sil poly for a couple reasons. One, it's a little bit lighter weight. Two, it doesn't absorb water as much as the sil nylon. I do think the sil nylon is probably a stronger, more durable fabric. This seems pretty good, so I'm not too worried about, you know, tearing and ripping my tarp. But the coverage is just, it's really great. You know, I can't imagine getting splashback with with this tarp. It just comes down so low compared to my Dyneema tarp from Hammock Gear. But yeah, that coverage is just really good. Another thing you'll have to consider this tarp is the cost. So I had thought about getting another 12-foot Dyneema hex tarp with doors, and I just forgot how expensive they were. I think it was around $435. I was like, whoa, it's kind of steep. I have an 11-foot Dyneema tarp, which I'll probably use for my other hammocks, my, you know, gathered in hammocks. And I just really wanted a longer tarp with doors. And this one, only $155, which I thought was reasonable for 13 feet in length. Again, it's 8.5 feet in width, made of sil poly, and, you know, it's a good fabric. It really is. It's just not lightweight. So that Dyneema tarp that I had with the snakeskin, the cordage, all the hardware, it came in at around 10 ounces. I mean, 10 ounces for a tarp. That was insane. And I love that. This one comes in at 22 ounces. So more than twice as much. But, you know, $300 less. And I figured I already have a good Dyneema tarp. And I needed something a little different. You know, for my bridge hammock, I wanted to try something a little different. So that's why I went with the Warbonnet Thunderfly. The thing I'm doing different is with my doors. So I'm still using the Dutch hookworms, but, you know, it's been a little bit different, and I'm trying different options. I think I know which one I'm going to go with, but let me just kind of show you some of my thoughts. So on my old Dyneema tarp, I had this stretch cord, and it was attached to a Dutch hookworm. And that was really great, because what I could do then is I could flip this back and attach it to the other one on the other side, and that would keep my doors open. Well, the way these doors are shaped, that's not gonna work out really well. But really, I'm just trying to figure out a way how to close them. So what you can see here, what I did was I have a stretch cord on each door corner, and it goes down to a stake and it attaches. And that's okay. That's definitely coverage. I mean, I've got more than enough coverage in there. There's no way I'm gonna get wet. I just don't like the idea of having to bring an extra stake to stake it down. And in some of the pictures I've seen people kind of wrap it around the tree. And again, I don't like that idea because I want to walk underneath that. And if that's just another low cord that's wrapped around a tree that I've got to be aware of, that I could easily trip over. So this is where I think I'm going to do. And I did this some with my old tarp. It just didn't work out well because of the size. So what you have here is, again, I've got the stretch cord on the ends of the corners, And what I did was I attached the hookworm onto the cordage for one of my stakes. And then I did that for the other end as well. And that seems to be working out really well. Again, I like that. It closes it up really well. You can see it gives me good coverage. Again, definitely not going to get wet in there. And if I can go from end to opposite end of hooking up my doors, then I don't have to bring 2 extra tent stakes. I mean, it's already heavy enough. It's 22 ounces. I didn't want to bring extra gear to have to make it work. So I think I'm going to go with that approach. So still using the Dutch hookworms, still using that shot cord. It's working out really well. I'm just using it a little differently. Another thing I always recommend with tarps is when you're not using it, you know, I would have it staked out like you saw me in the beginning. I have the stakes here on the ground, but I will flip it back, you know, so I don't want anything to ruin my view of, you know, Ramona Falls there. And so that allows me to have easy access to my hammock, my sling underneath without the dipping underneath the tarp and everything. And then if it does start to storm, or before I go to bed, I can easily deploy my hammock in case something were to happen. I do think the Warbonnet Thunderfly is a great hammock, but I would only use it for a bridge hammock, and that's me. At least the 13-foot length one. I would never use this tarp with my regular gathered in hammock. I think it's just way too much tarp than I need. If I go back to my gathered in hammock, then I'll use my 11-foot Dyneema tarp, which works great. This tarp, I think, works really well with bridge hammocks, and that's why I bought it, you know, looking for that extra coverage. So the 11-foot, you know, may be a little different, but again, I wanted something a little longer to be able to have doors to cover the ends of the bridge hammock. So I do think it is a great tarp, but I would probably only use it for bridge hammocks. That is the Warbonnet Thunderfly, and it really has been a good hammock. I've only used it a few times, but it really seems to provide great coverage. I mean, the Thunderfly is probably more hammock than what I need. I like the fact that it's 13 feet in length because the doors cover up the ends of my bridge hammock really well, so I like that. But I probably could have gone with the Mini Fly. But the Thunderfly, excellent coverage, you know, and cost effective, at least compared to Dyneema. I mean, it's $300 less. So I think you get more for your money with this type of tarp. The con really is that it's heavy. I mean, 22 ounces, that's almost 1.5 pounds. It does pack down really well, but you know, that is still heavy if you're trying to go a little bit lighter weight. But it is a good hammock, a good tarp. I definitely highly recommend. So if you're in the market for one, check out the Warbonnet Thunderfly.